Hey guys, my name's Aaron from Geeky Development and welcome to our tvOS crash course. Now in the previous part of our crash course we took a look at creating custom buttons and using the native new feature to tvOS applications with the focus view on the objects. We're going to be continuing on from that in customizing our application, and in this fifth part of the crash course we're going to be taking a look at the layers of the rest of our objects. So first we're going to take a look at adding rounded edges to our image view and our buttons to give it a more kind of polished feel, and we're also going to add a nice border effect to the image to create a nice frame. We're then going to take a look at custom fonts and how we can add them into our project, allow our application and project to be able to read these custom fonts and change how the text looks. So we're finally looking on polishing off our application before we finish it. So let's jump straight into this fifth part of our free tvOS crash course. Okay then, so the first thing we're going to tackle is stylizing the objects on the screen. So what we're going to do is add some kind of styling options to the objects to make them look a lot better. For example, we're going to add a nice rounded effect on the buttons, which is what you would have got default if you didn't add a custom image to the button itself. We're also going to add a nice rounded border to the images themselves, so it kind of makes them look like they're in their own picture frame. Before we move on to actually customizing the text itself with custom fonts. So we're going to start with the buttons and the images. So we're going to jump into our project and we're going to jump into our detail view controller.swift. So then what we're going to do and how this is going to work is we need to stylize the icons when the view loads up. Now this is not something you can add in the interface, we have to code it ourselves. So by placing it in the view did load, it kind of adds these features to the objects as soon as it loads ready for the user. So as you scroll down to the bottom of our view did load where we added our image int and our button alpha and disabled it for our back button there, we're going to enter a few new lines. So let's start with the actual buttons themselves. Now what we're going to do is simply add a kind of corner radius, a corner to all four sides of our button, which gives it a nice rounded effect. And how we do this is we get the name of the button, the outlet that we created. So let's start with our next button. So our next outlet, and we don't kind of work with the button itself, we work with the layer of the object. So we do the name of the outlet, then we do dot layer, then we do dot corner radius, which is the attribute we want to work with within the layer, and we equal that to a particular value. So the higher the value, which is a number, the kind of more the curvature is going to be on the button. So we're going to keep it nice and simple to start with. Let's just go with 10 and we'll see if that's enough. We can always increase or decrease it. Then we need to set our clip to bounds to true, which will kind of enable the application to set this configuration on the buttons layer. So we get our next button again, outlet. Then we do dot clip to bounds or clips to bounds there and equal that to true. So if we went to build and run now, again, you'll only see this on the next button. This is all we've configured it for. And all we basically told it to do is get the kind of rounded edges of the layer of the button and basically make them round by 10 pixels. So you can see now, if anything, that's perfect. Compared, if I press next there to reveal this one, compared to our back button or our previous button, you can now see the corner edges or the corner radius it having an effect on the button itself. So let's double it and just see what the difference is just by doubling the value of what the corner radius equals. Again, it's how much it kind of curvatures, how many pixels in it starts to curve the button. So we'll see now. You see that's quite a lot. So I think 10 is the perfect value we want to equal our corner radius to. So let's set this back to 10. And what we're going to do underneath the line now, we're going to add in our back button dot layer dot corner radius to also equal 10. And I'll kind of create a space there so it's a bit easier to see. And then we get our back button. Then we also need to clips to bounds to equal true. There we go. So if build and run now, we set them both simply to have the corner radius on, and it should give us that kind of effect that the buttons in tvOS applications already give us, because by default, before we add our custom image to them, they already do have that corner radius. So let's select it now, and you can now see. So it always increases as that's what we set it to with the focused image there. And you can see the corner radius now, it kind of just polishes off the application just that little bit more. Kind of gives us a better feel to the application itself. So there we go. Now we do something very similar to the image view displaying our car within it. But what we're going to do to this is we're going to create, again, not just with the rounded edges like we've done with the buttons, but we're also going to place it with a nice bordered around it, which will kind of create that frame effect for our image. So back within Xcode again, we're going to create a whole new line, and we're going to do this separately from the rest of our buttons here, so we can kind of separate the code and understand where the buttons are and the image is. So we're going to give it a corner radius. Now this one's going to be quite big, the corner radius, because it's such a large object compared to the buttons. So we get our detail image view dot layer, and again we're repeating the same process, dot corner radius to equal, now let's go quite large, 50, just to see how that looks. And again we get our detail image view dot clip to bounds to also equal true. There we go. So we dramatically increase the size of the value of the corner radius on the image view because the object itself is quite big. So we'll see how it looks. So there we go. If anything, again, that's perfect size again. We may increase it round about to about 75 to see what the kind of border looks like on that. I could be ruining it, but we'll see now. Quite lucky there to get the actual values looking good first time. But we see how this one looks. You know what, that one looks a lot better. So we're giving it a much harsher, much greater value on the corner radius to give it that effect. So what we're going to do now then is add a border to it. Now what the border does, it means we can create a line, we can choose how thin or how thick the line is, and we can even choose what color we have it. And what that's going to do is run alongside our image view. Now, because we added the corner radius on and we chose the clips to bounds, it doesn't mean that the border is going to be of the image view itself, a big rectangle. It actually creates that curvature with the corner radius, which is a great effect to the image, thus creating our framed effect. So how we do this then, just underneath where we added in our corner radius, we're going to type out our detail image view again, and again we're working with the layer, not the actual image view or image itself. So dot layer, and this time we add in a border width. So because we already clipped it to bounds, we don't need to do anything else. Add in a border width, and that's going to equal a value. Now again, the greater the value, the thicker the border is going to be. So let's go 10.0. Now the reason I'm doing a decimal point .0 is because it's a big difference from, as you can see, the corner radius from 10 to 75. You need to increase it quite a lot to make that curvature bend. But with the border width, even a 0.1 of an increase is a significant amount. So you're going to want to work with decimal points when it comes to the border width. So we've set our border width. Now we need to set a color for the border width. And what we're going to do is work with the RGB kind of color format, so we can work with, rather than setting to red, blue or green, we can put a specific RGB kind of color in if you want it to kind of be similar to your logo colors or your business colors or anything like that. So we get our detail image view again, and again we're working with our layer because we now need to select our border color, and then we equal that to a UI color. And the UI color is going to be the red, green, blue kind of RGB color scheme. And another reason we use this is because it also gives us the ability to set an alpha. So what I'm going to do now is kind of create the border to be white, but I'm going to set an alpha on it so it's kind of transparent. That means you can see the image from, well, basically with underneath it, which really does give it that nice effect. So how it works then, the RGB, is obviously, think of the color sliders if you've ever seen them before. The maximum you can go up to is 255. So to get that white colour, it's obviously, now if you never used RGB colours before, I'm going to bring Photoshop up now, or alternatively you can search it on Google to bring up an RG picker. If you simply select white here, as you can see, I'll bring up the picker now, it's in the top left corner. At the bottom here, we have these R, G and B symbols, which you can see that are maximised at 255. That's the highest a number can go. Now, if I chose it to be blue, you'd see that green comes down a bit to compensate for the shade of blue, but the red has gone completely down and blue is all the way up to the top at the highest value, because obviously the colour is blue. That's how it basically works. So you can select any colour you like, and then once you get these values here, which we're going to stick with white, which they're all 255, back in Xcode, we start with our red, we set it to 255. .0, because again you can also work with decimal points to get that specific color, over 255.0. So obviously if your red was, let's say 0, you do 0.0 over 255. Now as white happens to be the same color, or same value for each of these three colors, we're going to place in the same one. Within our alpha, now we're going to set this as a transparency. So let's make it half of its transparency. So we do 0.5. If you want it to be full transparency, just place in the number 1.0. So 0.5, and we'll see how kind of strong or how weak the border is, and it can then help us change up the value. Then we do .cg color to finalize all the colors there, and this will now add a nice border to our rounded image view in our detail view controller. So as it loads up now, we're going to select any random car. Let's pick the Mclaren P1 here. As you go into it now, you can see our detail image view again has the rounded edges that we selected, but it now has this nice transparent white border. So it kind of creates that image framed effect. So let's decrease the alpha again, because I feel like it's a little bit too strong. Everyone's got their own preference. Let's make it 2.5, so a quarter of its original transparency and half of what we've just originally set it. And you can see how the frame looks then. So this time, let's select the Bugatti. How does that look? That looks 10 times better. It's there, you can see it, but it's not so strong and dominating on the actual image view itself, which looks really good. So we now have these styling options that we've selected to our button and the image view. Now you can also select the border to the buttons themselves. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. So now we're taking care of those two objects there. We're now going to move on to the actual text itself and how we can customize it. And what we're going to do is add in a custom font. Now Xcode gives us a wide range of different fonts within our main.storyboard that we can add to all of our labels and text. Obviously you just select custom, and then we have a great amount of set fonts that we can use. But sometimes it's not really the style you want to go for. Maybe your logo that you want to place in text has a specific font. Maybe you just want a specific font to give a kind of themed and styled kind of feel to the application. And this allows us, Xcode is brilliant because it allows us to take custom font files, add them into our project, and simply use them in our application. So a great resource, a great website to get custom fonts is, if I bring up the internet now, is dafont.com. They have a huge database of custom fonts that we can freely use within our projects. So I'm on the website now. I'm going to go to their top list, their most kind of popular fonts at the moment, and we're going to see what they've got. So let's say I type in our search preview here, a name of a car. Let's say we add in our Audi R8, and then I submit that. That means it will change all the fonts now to kind of basically read Audi R8 so you can see how they look. So I'm going to start with a font for the title of all of our cars, or the car names. So let's see what stands out then. As I scroll down now, I can also change the how many fonts it shows us. Let's show that to 100. That's quite a few fonts that allow us pop up now. So I feel like that one's probably a pretty cool one there, that Keep Calm. Let's scroll down, or this one's kind of like a Star Wars type theme. We also have like a kind of nice little swerve or kind of different kind of flicks on the letters there, which really does look pretty cool. So let's select this one then, the wolf in the city. I'm going to simply download that. So we got that now. We'll come back to that in just a moment, as we're now going to handle the rest of the other fonts. So back within our project, we've got a font now that we're going to use for our title at the top. So let's do one now for our stats and our indicator. Something a bit more, not as flamboyant, a little bit more easy to read. So let's change this then, for example, if I was doing top speed, let's put a capital on the T. And let's say it came at, I don't know, 200 miles per hour. So we can kind of, again, see how it would look if we use that particular font. So going down, and let's see then what can grab my eye there. That one looks pretty cool. Nice bold capitals, nice and simple, and gets to the point, this lemon milk. So let's use that one as well. Okay, so we've got two fonts now. Get rid of the internet. All I need to do now is bring up my desktop here in the folder. So we've got the two kind of fonts here, as you can see, in zip folders. So we're going to unzip them, as you can see there. So we start with our lemon milk, and we got here our wolf in the city. So how we add these into our projects is very simple. You just need to simply go into the folder, select the font. It's usually a OTF or a TTF format, and drag and drop that underneath our info.plist, making sure that we copy items if needed and that we add it to all of our targets, so it's correctly embedded within our project and we can reference and use it. So once we got that one in, we're going to go back and add in our wolf in the city. Now our wolf in the city has three different types of fonts. So we're going to keep it nice and simple and just go for the regular styled one. So we're going to take the OTF here. We don't really want the light style, we're just going to keep it nice and simple and drag and drop that in. And again, add that to our targets and press finish. Okay, so we now got both of them in. So they're embedded into our project and we can now reference them within our project to start using them. But we first need to make sure that our application can read it. So we now head over to our info.plist, our information or our property list. And then we're going to add a new line. And then we're going to simply type out fonts provided by the application. We then need to drop down that with our little item 0 here and add in the name of the font file. So our application can read it, knows it exists, and we can use it within our project. So we type out our lemon milk. Again, it's case sensitive, so make sure you get it correct. Then we do .otf and add that in. I press the little plus symbol here and we go to add in our second one. So our wolf in the city.otf as well. Add that in. There we go. So make sure you write it just as it looks in this side here of the file name. So we now have added those in. Just simply press Command and B just to build our project so we know it's in and it's kind of refreshed itself with the fonts in our application. So now we can go into our main.storyboard. And within our main.storyboard, we're first going to select our car name at the top. And we're now going to change the font. So we uncustom, make sure we're uncustom at the top here and go to the family font name. Now you will be able to see that our fonts are now added into our project. As you can see, we've got our lemon milk here and our wolf in the city. So we select our wolf in the city as that's the one I chose to be our title name, as you can see there, which will now increase the size. So we can see a lot better there. This one's gonna look really, really nice because of the little flicks and stuff on the actual letters themselves. So let's go up to 90 there. Then I'm gonna select the remainder of all the other labels and then change this to our lemon milk font. There we go. And I'll bring down the size of that one to about 25. No, let's go about 22 there. There we go. So we're now using custom fonts that we've imported into our project. All that's left to do now is build and run to see how it looks when the labels get updated with the information that we've set within the project. Now, I may need to increase the actual car name itself. So the Aston Martin Vanquish, there you go. I'm going to actually increase that size there because even though it looks quite big here, it's quite small once we got the remainder of the words in. So let's go quite a bit higher. Let's see. We'll put it at 130. And then we'll see how that looks. So build and run again. then we'll simply choose our Aston Martin Vanquish again. There we go. A lot bigger now. You can see it's cut off the queue there, or the so again we'll simply resize this. It's just down to the size of our text box. So it should work now for the final time. Again, it comes into playing around with the fonts and the labels themselves, because some fonts are bigger than normal. And there we go, perfect, it looks brilliant. So we got a nice fancy, almost looks like handwritten calligraphy. Aston Martin Vanquish with our Wolf in the City font, and all of our stats are now having our lemon milk font, I believe it's called. It's a pretty weird name. But there we go, and if I go back and let's choose our Audi R8, the 8 looks really good. Slightly looks like the RS, but that's definitely an 8. And then we choose the BMW i8. There we go there. The Bugatti Veyron looks pretty cool. The Mercedes GT. We got the Mclaren P1. The Lamborghini Huracan. Now that looks really good with the owl on the Lamborghini, how it flicks under the rest of the... See, this is the brilliant thing about having custom fonts. It kind of sets your application apart from all the basic fonts and all the other applications that would have used basic fonts. And then finally, the Ferrari 488, I believe it is. It looks like the 4SS. Very weird. But it's a weird font, and again, it adds a different dimension to the application itself. So there we go then, we got some custom fonts in, changing up how the application looks, not only with text, and obviously the text is dynamic and changes, but we also have nice rounded edges on our buttons to give it that simple effect that we would have got anyway if we didn't use custom images within our buttons. And our detail image also has rounded edges, but it also has a nice border to give it that image framed effect. And there we go. By adding these styling features such as rounded edges, borders, and even custom fonts, it gives it that polished feel and effect that you want to get with any normal application. And if you'd like to take your development to the next stage, make sure you check out our full featured course. Links for that will be down below. But in part 6 of this crash course, we're going to be taking a look at creating parallax app icons which move in front of your eyes, top shelf images and launch screens, all within the next part of the course. So until then, I'll see you all soon.